I'm Stephen Henry Madoff, the chair of the Curatorial Roundtable, which is part of the MA in Curatorial Practice at the School of Visual Arts. The program is a 2-year master's degree in every aspect of curating towards professional work in the field. And the Roundtable, which is now, I think, in its 12th year, is always an opportunity for us to hear from distinguished directors of institutions and curators about their practice as a way for an audience, which of course includes our students, to hear what was transformative, what are insights into the practices of making exhibitions and curatorial projects as an anecdotal way of understanding the practical aspect of curating as well as the conceptual frameworks. So I'm delighted to have Adam as our first guest of the season. I'm going to read a short bio to introduce Adam and then hand things over to him. So Adam is the director of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Krakow, a curator of contemporary art and an author of texts on art. He served as artistic director of Kestner Gesellschaft in Hannover, where he developed an interdisciplinary curatorial program focused on the notions, and this is fascinating to me, and I hope this is part of your presentation, Adam, on the notions of tenderness, anabasis, and amor mundi, and realized exhibitions that, among other frameworks, reflected the avant-garde legacy of Lissitzky and the topicality of the political thought of philosopher Hannah Arendt. Previously, Adam was artistic director and chief curator of the National Gallery in Prague, and also has held curatorial positions at the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden in Washington and at Kunsthaus Graz. He also, as we were speaking before the presentation, founded the first curatorial program in Poland, and among his other achievements, has curated numerous international biennials, including Manifesta 7, the Prague Biennale, the Polish Pavilion in 2003, the Estonian Pavilion in 2013, and the Latvian Pavilion in 2024 at the Venice Biennale. He served as commissioner of the Czech Pavilion in 2017, 18, and 19. He did, interestingly, the first Polish retrospective of Louise Bourgeois and the first German exhibition of the great English artist Paul Arrigo. So I'm sure the CV goes on much longer than that, Adam, of accomplishments. But with that, I'm again going to turn things over to you. Please put your questions in chat at the bottom of the screen when you have them, and welcome, Adam.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I welcome you very much from my brand new office. I was appointed the director of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Krakow only a month ago. So it's my actually 3rd week in this space. And I'm accompanied by this brilliant work by Monica Bonvicini, which is behind me. I don't know if you see it. It says, "The hour we knew nothing about each other." You mentioned my biography, my CV, but I guess this is also the moment when we don't know about each other, but I hope that within those 50 minutes, we're going to get to know each other better. So it's a great honor to participate in this roundtable. I've been following your work for a very long time, and I was also participating in some of those curatorial roundtables as a visitor, and I learned a lot. So I'm so happy, and I'm very grateful for your invitation. I hope I'm gonna meet your expectations. We can, at the moment when it turns too boring, we can maybe turn into a conversational mode. But since I am in a way in a transition right now, moving from another country to Krakow, and from one institution to another, I want to focus on this recent past. It's also a pretty emotional moment for me because I'm coming back to Krakow, where I come from, after 23 years of living abroad and collecting experience institutionally in different countries, from Austria through Washington, D.C., down to Czech Republic, and most recently, Germany. And it was a great lesson, which, of course, I cannot stop comparing right now all those different stations with what is happening in Poland, in the institutional life in Poland, in how institutions work, what are the relationships between those who own institutions and those who run those institutions, what is the audience. And as Stephen mentioned, I always was fighting for professionalization of curating as a practice. I did conferences about it. I indeed established curatorial studies. And I desperately always wanted to prove that curating is a profession, that you can learn it, that you can study it, that you can get academic degree, and that you kind of belong to all those professionals with, generally accepted professions. I'm, as I said earlier to Stephen, I'm proud to see how many of our graduates of our curatorial program got really important positions in major art institutions in Poland. So we didn't waste our time at that time. What I want to do today is to share with you my experience from Germany, from my tenure as artistic director of Kestner Gesellschaft. I decided to do it because it was a great lesson for me, and also because of the specificity of this institution, which is very unique. Some of you who don't speak German might not even know what does it mean, but there is no other official name of this institution. It's called Kestner Gesellschaft. In a translation, it can be Kestner Society. It's like Renaissance Society, maybe a member-based institution, very independent, very autonomous. At least that was the case at that time, 1916, when it was established in the city of Hanover. The city of Hanover, it's in the middle between Berlin and Cologne. So when you travel from Berlin to Cologne, you actually could or should stop in Hanover. The city which in the 20s and the 30s was a cradle of avant-garde, where Kurt Schwitters animated the scene and was bringing many of those incredible visionary avant-garde prophetic artists of that time. And within that spirit, Kestner Gesellschaft was established as a place sort of contrary to conservative Kunstverein that existed in Hanover previously, one of the oldest Kunstvereins. Kestner Gesellschaft was established as the place exactly for this, what Kurt Schwitters couldn't show, present, and advocate for in any other institutional places. And I was extremely proud to, having been selected the director of this institution. And here you see a pretty dramatic image of the current venue of Kestner Gesellschaft, which is a hybrid of now contemporary architecture and 1906 architecture, brutalist architecture of the swimming pool. It used to be a swimming pool. This middle part was bombed during the war, and then in the 90s was reconstructed, converted into exhibition space. So there is a kind of mix of white cubish interiors and the sort of semi-brutalist buildings, interiors of the early 20th century. And the project you see on the facade comes from the series of facade projects that were developed for the facade, in this case by Marinella Senatore. Remember the first time you saw your name. And the pride of being in Hanover and working for the Kestner Gesellschaft was also connected with, of course, the brilliant history of the avant-garde and the activity of many individuals, also within the institutional context. And I cannot now not to mention one of those. So this is like, in a way, also showing where do I come from, or what my thinking about museum practice or curatorial studies is influenced by. And this is the great Alexander Dorner. I don't know how many of you know this personality. Dorner was very active in Hanover. He was a director of the so-called Province Museum, which is the Landesmuseum Hanover, but he also was a president of Kestner Gesellschaft. So I could have smelled his spirit, his presence, his passion, his visionary thinking, because he was the one. Hans Ulrich Obrist even established an official society which is called Everything Started from Alexander Dorner. Alexander Dorner revolutionized the way we think about museums, we think about museums collections, about exhibition making, about the curating as a practice that turns your visit into a museum, into an experience. And I want to turn your attention into those two publications. One is called Why Art Museums, which is actually a title of a lecture which in the US Dorner delivered in the 40s, because Dorner had to, of course, in the 30s flee Germany, and he, as a protege of Alfred Barr, Gropius Panofsky, who was, by the way, also born in Hanover, he became a director of the Rhode Island School of Design. And he was a director there only for 3 years, but he tried to translate the so-called Hanover experience into American contexts. And the Rhode Island Museum School of Art, maybe 5 years ago, published this incredible book, which I really recommend you, which is called Why Art Museums, the Unfinished Work of Alexander Dorner. And that was for me like a kind of, I don't know, manual, like a Bible almost, that I have been using, trying to go back the topic of the anabasis, and being aware of the current moment, the present. I mean, being in Hanover, in the institution that he sort of co-founded and was responsible for. Das Leben der Museum is a book which was published about the work of Alexander Dorner. Das Leben der Museum is the living museum, is the term which Alexander Dorner coined because in his view, the museum should be a living museum. And the collection should be, or the museum should be also a power plant. He compared museum to a power plant, not a storage house, a storage room, but a powerhouse. So it's a powerhouse, and these are people who are visitors who are producing the energy in combination with this powerhouse. So various different forms of experimentation was invented by him. But the most important thing is that all this, what he had been prophetically introducing at that time, or now nearly 100 years ago, is so extremely relevant today. You know, the understanding of the history of art as the history of culture, and the art of the future with different artists he worked with. For instance, Moholy-Nagy, he together with him, he established the so-called Room of the Present. He also worked with Lissitzky, but about Lissitzky a bit later. I'm going to be talking, but the main achievement of Alexander Dorner in Hanover, the achievement that resonates until today for the art history and for the contemporary art, is the commission from Lissitzky of the very famous abstract cabinet, Cabinet de Abstract. Maybe many of you know this prototype, you can say, of an installation. which, as you can see, corresponds also with the Märzbau. And those two works, Märzbau as well as Cabinet de Abstract, are reconstructed right now in Sprengel Museum in Hanover. So when you happen to be in Hanover, you must go to Sprengel Museum before to see those two masterpieces of art, and then you should go to Kestner Gesellschaft. And the Kestner Gesellschaft, when I was thinking, what can I do as a director, as the one who will be now in charge of this institution and of its incredible legacy, I was trying to put together Kestner into brackets. Kestner, anyways, it's the August Kestner is a name of a diplomat, a 19th century collector, you can say local hero. So there is a Kestner Museum in Hanover, and there's, of course, Kestner Gesellschaft in Hanover. But I wanted to focus on thinking about what can I do, what my exhibition program, what my proposal could be. I wanted to focus on the society, because I thought it's a kind of unique name for an institution. Unlike any others, there's no other Gesellschaft. There is, I guess, Gesellschaft für Neue Medien in Bremen, I guess, but it's a pretty unique. As you know, Germany is a country of Kunstvereine, actually. So that means societies of or unions of artists run by the artists. Kestner Gesellschaft is a society, is the upper class society. It was established by the elites, and the elites that really wanted to create a space for what had not been generally accepted around that time. Thinking about the program, I immediately kind of concentrated myself on the notion of the political, going down to, of course, politics of exhibiting, performing, imagining, in any ways, trying to connect the society with an institution and the world we live in. I came up with this trilogy of exhibitions, from tenderness through anabasis down to amor mundi, and going back into basically my roots, because I studied theater and literature. So Olga Tokarczuk, you know, a very famous Polish writer, the laureate of the Nobel Prize in Literature, Paul Celan, incredible poet, and Hannah Arendt, incredible political thinker, who was born in Hanover, around the corner from the Kestner Gesellschaft in 1906. So I took over Kestner Gesellschaft in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And that was also a kind of moment of reflection, also because simply we couldn't work, everything stopped, there was a lockdown. So I had a lot of time in a way to reflect upon what my program could be and what is needed at that time. So in a way, I developed a certain journey into self-identification. And a certain kind of coincidence happened, because many of you might remember the end of 2019, so a couple of months before the COVID hit us. Olga Tokarczuk delivers a Nobel Prize lecture. And this Nobel Prize lecture was incredible. It was called Tenderness, or Tender Narrator. It's available still online in different languages, but I was really struck by a certain sense of déjà vu, a certain sense of similarity between what she is talking about and what my reflection about institutions, art institutions is. And I want to remind you that I was at that time kind of separating myself from a big, huge institution where I was artistic director. That's the National Gallery in Prague, which consists of 7 buildings and 5 huge collections. And it's just huge. And the tenderness was a kind of promise of a certain relationship that is based upon proximity, that is based upon a kind of deeper relationship with all those you work with, collaboration with artists, with others, with curators I was responsible for, and so on and so forth. So I started to see or to kind of read what Tokarczuk was talking about through my own experience and through my, at that time, pretty dark thinking about institutions. And I will not quote too much. I just want to quote now what Tokarczuk says in this Nobel Prize speech. She says that tenderness is the most modest form of love. It is the kind of love that does not appear in the scriptures or the gospels. No one swears by it, no one cites it. It has no special emblems or symbols, nor does it lead to crime or prompt envy. It appears wherever we take a close and careful look at another being, at something that is not ourselves. And I was struck by kind of simplicity of it, by this definition, but also by sincerity and authenticity of this exhibition. At some point, Olga Tokarczuk talks about the teapot, which is the hero of one of the fairy tales by Hans Christian Andersen. The teapot who, by carelessness of people, gets damaged and is being thrown away. And Olga Tokarczuk dreams of that other world, the world of the teapot, of someone who is in a way rejected or left aside and forgotten. So I try to see and apply consequently the notion of tenderness as a model, even for the institutional practice. And Tokarczuk also helps because she is not only defining tenderness, but also she is kind of describing the tender narrator, so the protagonist of her definition of tenderness. And the tender narrator is not the narrator in the first person, I walk through the city, or the third, he is walking through the city, but in the fourth person. So it's the one like kind of almost a bird sitting somewhere on the tree and has this sort of holistic perception, knows better, feels better, has the empathy, and understands better. And I feel like actually all artists from, you mentioned Louise Bourgeois I worked with, down to any other artist I worked with, I thought that I could describe them exactly as the standard narrator. So the first year of my work was exactly the search for the tender narrator. And I continue this search. I think it's a never-ending search for the tender narrator within the institutional and exhibition program contexts. So as a result, I did a kind of statement, which was a very, very important exhibition for me. One of the largest exhibitions in the recent history of the Kestner Gesellschaft. With 45 artists with over 150 works from actually 17th century to the present day, because I also wanted to incorporate collections of Hannover to create a sort of situation of exchange within our neighbors, within the local context, within my colleagues. To, in a way, create this sort of panorama of tenderness through ages. And you see here, this is the list of the artists. So you see it's a totally cross-generational and very international group of the artists. And these are some of the images from this exhibition for which we created a very light structure. You will see also later that one of the important aspects of my practice, curatorial practice, is the presence of exhibitions architecture or space arrangement. And I've been working with many great architects or many artists in the role of architects, especially in Czech Republic, where this sort of crossway, the interdisciplinarity within the artistic practice and spatial sensibility is very typical. But here we wanted to kind of make even a slight reference to documenta, but we tried to build a very porous structure to really create this exhibition upon relationships and almost kind of close bodily connections between artworks and that were put into this. So it was altogether as an exhibition a very, very sensual experience. You may see in the lower corner here, next to this silver mirror-like surface of the painting by Pamela Rosenkrantz, there is a page. The page is simply torn out of the stories by Clarice Lispector, Brazilian artist, a Brazilian writer, sort of sub-narration that ran through the whole exhibition with various texts of stories or poems collected from Clarice Lispector, who within this context functioned as yet another artist or yet another contributor to this exhibition. And in this picture, for instance, there is a conversation between Johann Grimon Press and his amazing video called Politics of Love, Pamela Rosenkrantz, and Gracias by the one and only Maria Lasnik. There were different elements put together, including gender and the queer aspects, yet another combination of female artists with a sort of a feminist approach. Again, it's Maria Lasnik and Renate Bertelmann. Here, Sharon Lockhart, and what you see in the back here is Eva Partum, her amazing work from the 1980s, which I read in the context of this exhibition as an example of the political tenderness in times of oppression. One more image, and you also see grandiosity of the architecture of Kestner Gesellschaft. The past, the architectural past, that was the major swimming pool area that was later by the architects slashed and divided into 2 floors. But even the upper floor cut half is extremely generous and provokes many science-specific projects and monumental sculptures or installations. And this is also how we work with artists within the single solo show. And those shows were almost always produced for this space and in response to this space or its former function, not only architecture. We see here Barbara Świderska and with the textile work and Erna Rosenstein, amazing Polish Jewish artist. And again, in the back, here lies Tenderness, a very ironic work by Renate Bertelmann, for whom tenderness is basically the main topic of her work, developed through an entire career of hers. So the whole kind of language and the alphabet of vulnerability, of tenderness, of intimacy, critical intimacy, of hospitality, care, love, healing, violence, and so on, was in a way put together in a quite theatrical manner. This is the graveyard of tenderness, again in the back or in the center. And Peter Hujar here with one of the photographs, and yeah. Cecilia Edefalk, Kerwin Evans, and Shaban Abnen, again, kind of conversing within. Now you see the modern or the contemporary architecture that connects those 2 historical towers. So Johann Lempert with those very fragile photographs of nature and human body, skin, next to Enrico David, Italian artist who concentrates himself on the kind of deformed human figure. And a little bit ecological aspect here with the Shannon Ebner work that is connected to water and ecological disasters. I meant, and so the tenderness was in a way a seed that was planted, which had never left my mind, or had in a way never left the space of the Kestner. It was always being referenced by other exhibition, and this search for the tender narrator set up by Olga Tokarczuk continued. And I'm just going to go very quickly with 2 slides or 3, one of the case studies of this tender narrator, because the tender narrator at that time was, of course, one and only great Paula Rego. And we did a solo show, the first institutional solo show of Paula Rego in Germany. Sadly, the opening took place 2 months before she passed away. But the show was done with her presence and with her knowledge, with her assistance. We have not only showed the work, but we also, in a way, moved her studio to one of the rooms of the Kestner Gesellschaft. You can find all images on the website. And this was something really incredible that allowed an incredible input into her work, because normally you see her paintings or pastels, not really sculptural work. You see here those 2 birds behind this big structure. These are stage design costumes for one of the theater productions. But basically, she is constructing papier-mâché sculptures of figures of human beings, and then she is painting it. She is working only with one model, which is the lady here who posed for the angel. But having next to exhibition a studio, which is like a theater set, totally uncanny, grotesque, incredible, like Cabinet de Curiosité, amazing, was such a discovery on one hand, and also like helped to understand this very complex work. And again, coming back to the definition of the tender narrator here, all those political elements that are so present in Paula Rego's work in regards to political situation in Portugal, also Great Britain, but also in regards to to women's rights, and in regards to abortion, first of all, some very drastic images that was so strongly visible here, and even maybe in a more clear way in the context of, again, the tenderness and the tender narrator. I want to also point your attention to this exhibition design, because it was absolutely grand. The work was designed, the exhibition was designed by Didier Fiusa-Faustino, Mens Architecture, a Portuguese-French architect with his studio in Paris. And this caused my anxiety when I saw the proposal for the first time, because we had loans from very prestigious museums and institutions like Tate and Gulbenkian, and such a kind of unusual display had been proposed for those works, with the latex wrapped around leftovers from other former exhibitions. The tension was incredible, and this bodily, corporeal aspect from the paintings, the kind of violence, the sort of drama, this also sorrow that is inherent in this painting was so amplified by the strangeness of the surface paintings were hung on. It was incredible to guide people through this exhibition because we were all the time accompanied by this anxiety, you know, like, is this going to be received well? But it was perfect to this extent that we received the prize of the Zine magazine, Design and Architectural magazine, for the best exhibition architecture of 2022, I guess. And this show was like incredible blockbuster. It didn't want to be, but it became. We had to build additional cloakroom because we had so many people. And this is the most magnificent tableau of Pavla Rego, where she kind of rewrites the Bible, replacing male saints with the female characters. This work was conceived for the National Gallery in London cafeteria. It never traveled. It traveled for the first time to Kestner Gesellschaft in Hannover 3 years ago. Yeah, and now I'm moving to, because I have to speed up. So from the society towards the institution, because again, the kind of background of the institution, its legacy, its history, became a kind of trauma in a way that I couldn't get rid of. And the moment of anabasis, as you may know from Old Greek, is the moment when you come back upon embarking upon something. So it's a very paradoxical moment, which is very much connected with such issues like homecoming or impossibility of return. I was always fascinated by the poetry of Paul Celan, and he, in the early 50s, wrote this incredible poem where he is talking about this movement, this ambiguous movement of upward and back to the hard, bright future. And then a visible, audible thing, the 10th word growing free, together. And you know, if you know the poetry of Paul Celan, you know that he was writing in German, and German was not his native language. So he was inventing words. Some words might seem grammatically not correct. Like, for instance, the word together. The word together here in German means not zusammen, which is a like literal translation, but mitsammen, which I thought it's sort of beautiful nuance, like on the linguistic level, but it says a lot of mitsammen instead of zusammen. Okay, so the anabasis was a basis for the exhibition that again was very close to my heart and very much within the heart of the institution, or the heartbeat of the institution, because it was focused on Lissitzky, and it was going back 100 years ago, when in 1923 was the very first institutional exhibition of Lissitzky in his entire career in Kestner Gesellschaft, upon the invitation of Schwitters and Sophie Coopers-Lissitzky. But we have no time to talk to her. So I decided to make an exhibition that worked as a kind of tribute to celebrate the 100 years anniversary of this incredible fact of Lissitzky's exhibition in Kestner Gesellschaft. So self-portrait as the Kestner Gesellschaft. The Newman, the announcer, the constructor. The Newman, the announcer, the constructor were the characters which Lissitzky created for the portfolio, that like sort of addition that contemporary artists are creating for institutions to support the institutions. And he did a very successful portfolio at that time, 100 years ago, with those characters, the Newman, the announcer, the constructor, and the 3 other characters. But anyways, what I wanted to say, what was important for me is not only, you know, this one single exhibition, which happened 100 years ago, which was important for the institutional history, but it was also important for the entire institutional life, because it wasn't one night stand. neither for institution nor for Lissitzky himself. Lissitzky lived in Hanover for over 10 years. He even got married in Hanover, and he got married to to a widow of the first director of the Kestner Gesellschaft, Sophie Coopers-Lissitzky. Incredible personality, an incredible part of the institutional history. She would have been the first female director of the Kestner Gesellschaft after her husband, first director of the Kestner Gesellschaft, who passed away of Spanish flu, passed away. But because she was a woman, because she has children, she couldn't do it. One incredible Polish artist, Marysia Lewandowska, whom I invited to this exhibition, she made a kind of hypothetical fictive work as if Sophie Coopers-Lissitzky was indeed, or became indeed, the first director of the Kestner Gesellschaft. So again, those stories were very much intertwined, and it was this fictive female director from 100 years ago, resurrected. She was actually welcoming in my name visitors at the opening of the exhibition of Lissitzky. So you see, there was a very bright variety of artists here, from Antonioni to Schwitters, of course, with a really huge amount of works of Lissitzky. You have to know that when he worked on his exhibition 100 years ago in Kestner Gesellschaft, Kestner gave him a studio, so he worked there. And then when he suddenly had to escape to Russia, he left a big amount of those works that he worked on in Hanover. And these were really important works of pronouns that really shaped the formal language of Lissitzky for years. And this amount of works got, in a kind of bizarre way, again, we have no time to talk. When I'm invited again, I'm gonna tell you details about it. But now all those works are in Van Abbe Museum in Eindhoven. And I was so happy because I got all those works. You see those here, those works on paper. The name is Pronoun, which is a project for introduction of the new from Russian. And all those 40 works were hanging on the walls here. You see my cursor, yeah? Yeah. And set up in a dialogue with incredible artists, Austrian artists Florian Pumhosel and Katja Strunz. And what you see here, this is already an element of yet another exhibition design we put on, and of which we are extremely proud of, by the Austrian Architectural Office, the Next Enterprise. So with those mirror doors, this kind of infinity of space corresponding very much with Lissitzky thinking space, Denkraum. So you see more situations, very performative, very vivid. Again, the stage presence or theatrical aspect with the sound, and you see with this very clear space. So you see on the one hand, those vertical bars by Florian Pumhosel, and on the other hand, one of the most iconic, very early 1923 works of Lissitzky. And we reconstructed also this work coming from Van Abbe Museum again, which is one of the demonstration rooms that anticipated Cabinet de Abstrakte, located only a few streets away in Sprengel Museum. And then we set up a dialogue with many works from the period, from the 20s, as well as contemporary works commissioned for this exhibition. We even created those vitrines that alluded to the formal language of Lissitzky. So all those dreams of Alexander Dorner with the immersivity, with the participatory work, because this is the room you enter in and you are inside of this universe of Lissitzky. There were spaces to enter. All this had been presented here. This is more conceptual contemporary work by Austrian artist Heinrich Dunst. This object and F, this is already the reference to this famous portfolio that Lissitzky made for Kestner Gesellschaft 100 years ago. This is Susanne Sachse, performance artist from Berlin, who made vinyls referring to the period and serving vodka here on this in the kind of Soviet-style spirit. Again, you see, we also got one of those portfolios from Lissitzky here in entirety, and we presented it on the wall. And Van Abbe Museum made what is a kind of controversial decision, made a three-dimensional version of those, the Newman, the announcer, and the constructor as a sculpture. So from the drawing of Lissitzky to the sculpture, and we decided to show it, although it's a pretty kind of controversial decision to make it. Again, you see this triangle, this habitat. This is not an installation. It's a part of the exhibition design that created a habitat for the kind of sensory experience and intellectual experience of those works. Again, the mirror or reflective surface as the surface which caused kind of more the vertigo of the space, again, coming out of Lissitzky drawings. And Martin Creed, for instance, here, or Paul Harrison and John Wood, conceptual artists from Great Britain. And this was a very important work I already mentioned by Marysia Lewandowska, which who created again a kind of like cabinet in the spirit of Lissitzky with, of course, his signature colors. And inside, one could listen to this presumed to the wife of Lissitzky, the presumed hypothetical first director of the Kestner Gesellschaft, speaking. The work is called Welcome, very much in the spirit of Andrea Fraser Welcome, where there's a collage of, where the text of this opening speech is a collage of different quotations from various individuals, art historians, museum directors, and so on. So it resonated beautifully also with the presence of Lissitzky's coughing, because he very soon in 1941 passed away from tuberculosis. Already in Russia, and Sophie Cooper's Lissitzky accompanied him, of course, and she never came back to Germany, and she passed away in 1975 in real poverty in Novosibirsk. One more image from this spectacular room with site-specific work by Fernanda Fragateiro. And this is Katia Strunz, and this is the second portfolio which Lissitzky created because the first one was so successful. So he was really nice and he wanted to. I'm getting down to the last because I think I have only 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Moving from literature through poetry down to political thinking, and this is yet another homage and tribute because of Hannah Arendt thinking. As I mentioned, she was born in Hannover in 1906. She lived in as a 4-year girl. She moved with parents to Kaliningrad, where actually Alexander Dorner was born. So this decision concluded the trilogy, and it was already presented in a kind of quite turbulent political times. And it's a very sensitive issue, which I don't want to discuss because this show was a big compromise in regards to my plans that were proposing something else, but due to events of October 7th, 23, didn't happen. So this wasn't supposed to be only prelude. Prelude was supposed to be, of course, the introduction to the big show that was at the end aborted and didn't happen. This is yet another, you can say, challenge that you can encounter working in Germany today. So, but anyways, the prelude in itself, I think, was also a strong statement. The prelude was supposed to be mainly a discursive place. This is why the main area was a forum with chairs and a stage where a couple of times a week we invited speakers talking about Hannah Arendt, really preparing people for the show that was supposed to happen but didn't take place due to certain reasons. So I'm gonna quickly go through it. You may recognize some of those artists. This is an incredible artist from Senegal, El Hadji C, with his kites. This red wall is Ugo Rondinone. And on the left-hand side is Monica Bonvicini, exactly like the one behind me, and Iman Issa, an Egyptian artist here. And a kind of important figure behind this exhibition was Claire Fontaine, a collective, French collective, French-American collective with this work. As you can see here already, the kind of political content took over, and there were suggestions within this show to some events that happened at that time, but were not allowed to be discussed. You know that it turned out actually that Hannah Arendt became the most relevant thinker and philosopher for times we live in. This is this is a portrait of Hannah Arendt by Gabriele Goliath. This is yet another portrait of Hannah Arendt by Iman Issa, with a quotation referring to her political beliefs as an integral part of this work. Again, a kind of theater of cruelty by Iman Issa, and this incredible, powerful, I would say, kind of return to tenderness, a set of over 100 notes or little poems by Ugo Rondinone that embraced the whole space with those ephemeral messages. And you see, this was the space which was always active with those kind of emergency issues, hot topics, and the list of the speakers that were reading Hannah Arendt anew in this very hot moment. This was performed here. We also presented in a separate room this incredible documentary based upon the conversation with Hannah Arendt from 1960 something. One of the longest and the best articulations of her thought. So I wanted also herself to be present with this powerful appearance in ZDF documentary. And on the facade, which was already a kind of farewell for me, Auf Wiedersehen and goodbye with Germany, was the work of Eva Partum. New Horizon is a Wave. Eva Partum is the artist who is a proto-feminist artist from Poland, connected with Fluxus, who in the 80s emigrated to Berlin during the martial law in Poland. She is the most important for me artist who was brave to voice her political opinion in the end of the 60s and the 70s. And he remains a powerful artist of today. And this is why I decided to start my program here in Krakow by presenting her monographic show from March next year in Krakow, in MOCAK, in Museum of Contemporary Art. I think this is everything what I wanted to say. I don't know if time.
So you're very close, and I just had a note from Niels van Tom, who in fact has been a guest in the roundtable before, emailing me saying that chat was not enabled, but it is now enabled. So if you have a question, you can do so. Niels had a question for you, Adam. So I'm just going to read that. And he said, I think you said that you wanted to create links between exhibition making and society, which is something many of us working in the curatorial field are looking for, but which is hard to achieve. Thinking about tenderness and the theme of the tender narrator and its political implications, I'm wondering if an exhibition cannot just instigate a thinking field around tenderness through a display of artworks, but can become tender itself, and what that would mean for its visitors and for the society it's part of. I'm also wondering if an art institution could become tender and what a tender art institution would look like, what it would do.
It's so beautiful. Thank you so much. Of course, that was my dream. That was my intention. It is my intention. I strongly believe that this can happen. Although, we had with our audience, with my team, with people I invited to give talks. And so we discussed various aspects of tenderness being very much perceived as a sort of weakness, as something that cannot carry any kind of power of speech. It is not really commonly perceived as an expression of strength. Institutions are places of fight in a way. And if we understand tenderness differently, then we're going to be able to use it as a tool. I recall that at that time in Germany, I'm not sure if it was translated into English, there was a book that was released called Radical Tenderness. And I think this book maybe has a fascinating title. I have not really read the whole thing, but what I know about the author, it was and the kind of content was more about a kind of societal and a kind of intimacy and so on, like something that not really is of my interest. This is why, in the exhibition I organized, I included this word model, because my intention was to test to what extent tenderness is a powerful tool for political action, for interhuman relationship, for simply how this world can be structured and operate. I would love all of us to believe in this, that tenderness can be applied as something. And again, if you have not read Olga Tokarczuk, if you maybe also reading the whole oeuvre of Olga Tokarczuk could help to understand this notion of tenderness, which I, at that time when she was speaking, I thought I was sort of struck by this. But then I got totally seduced and taken over by it.
There are several other comments and questions about tenderness. So Shandy says, you mentioned tenderness carrying through the other two exhibitions. Do you see tenderness interacting with your work going forward?
Absolutely. I think the very notion tender museum, I would love to work on it, to develop it further, and to implement it. You can find online the artwork called Tender Museum, which the artist I mentioned, Marysia Lewandowska, made coincidentally, no relation to my research, my approach. Marysia Lewandowska, maybe 10 years ago, did a beautiful work about the Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź, the art museum in Łódź. You certainly know. And the second MoMA in the world museum established by Katarzyna Kobro and Henryk Starzewski, Władysław Strzemiński. And in the 60s, 70s, I mean, during the communist time, Ryszard Stanisławski was the director, together with a very unique director, very tender director. That's the definition of tender director. And with his wife, Urszula Czartoryska, who was a very tender art critic, focused on photography. And they ran this museum, and they made miracles at that time, when the miracles in communism, when the country was closed, were not possible. So this installation, Tender Museum by Marysia, is permanently on view in the collection of Museum of Art in Łódź. And you will love the museum, of course. The best museum, the best collection in, yeah, but.
So Nadia just has a remark. She says, I suggest Gabriela Mistral with her book, Ternura, which means tenderness.
Yes, I will.
And then John Blanco says, I'd like to ask Adam, how does he care for themselves, I think. Self-care rituals. I really enjoyed reflecting on Adam's vocabulary, alter theater, the connection of theater and curatorial practice. So self-care ritual seems to be the question, which relates again to tenderness, I think. Tell me how you respond to that.
I don't really think about self-care. I used to think always within the kind of collective context. Because maybe just because this collective context, that means my work is my life, no matter how banal this sounds. But it's not possible to kind of separate even myself from it. It's like one thing. This is why this reflection is connected with whatever collective is part of what I do. Artist, team, and the people I live with. But again, it's all one thing. I like things, or I like situations that seem coherent, that are very much connected, that are one.
Okay.
I thought that autonomy is an important issue, but I think I gave up.
I mean, I will throw in the point of Henri Lefebvre in Production of Space, in which he talks about all things start with the individual, with oneself, and everything radiates out from oneself. So it's an interesting way, I think, of turning that notion of collective, that within the collective is that self, with other selves. That's what makes the collective. So self-care, I think, is something that, if we had more time, we could talk about in those terms.
I think, just if I may add something, so we are too much conditioned by many things, and this makes us unable to spread those wings of tenderness, because I don't want to sound like depressing, but the everyday is very harsh, especially within the institutional context. you know, which is a very restrictive context, and where the kind of freedom of what you do is so conditioned by I know, politics, by limitations of financial nature, and so on. So tenderness, maybe this is why tenderness in this context seemed to be inappropriate. It may not look like a strong or kind of expression of strength, but that's also societal agreement, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Elena, a brilliant talk, and through tenderness, we're enabled to find hope, which is apparently in short supply in many societies at this present time of upheavals and noise of men of fire. And then a last question, I think, from Carolyn Strauss. No questions, only Adam, if you can see this, I'm sending a tender, slow hello from Amsterdam. Lovely to see and hear you today. So, and people are thanking you for the presentation. I just add before we close a couple of things. You know, from my perspective as an American, more than as American, as a New Yorker, that in the age of late capitalism, of the museums, which are these huge monoliths, the notion of thinking of MoMA in relationship to tenderness is a far bridge, let's put it that way. And so to think about that as a kind of horizon point, you know, becomes something of optimism that's kind of hard to reach at this moment. When you think about what museums in New York are up against, and particularly, of course, especially in this time of the authoritarianism descending on culture in the US. In any case, as Elena writes, tenderness as subtle form of resistance, indeed, is my response to that. Thank you. Thank you all. Next,
may I just
please.
add something, because
Yeah.
I was hurrying up. I forgot, of course, to introduce the notion of the amor mundi, because in this context now, it frames beautifully. Amor mundi, developed by Hannah Arendt, is love for the world. She is saying, love by its very nature is unworldly, and it is for this reason, rather than its rarity, that it is not only apolitical, but anti-political, perhaps the most powerful of all anti-political forces. Love of the world is a relational form of love based upon understanding and critical thinking rather than sentiment or affect, a promise of continued existence, a way of not resigning from the world when the world seems too unbearable to live in. What is most difficult is to love the world as it is. Loving the world means neither uncritical acceptance nor contemptuous rejection, but the unwavering facing up to and comprehension of that which is. I think it's really beautiful, and it kind of expands this notion of tenderness towards a certain criticality that is allowed.
With that, I think we have to close. So thank you, Adam. Thanks to all of you. Next week, Daniela Zeiman from TBA 21, the artistic director of TBA 21 in Madrid, is our guest. So please come back for that. For the students and Adam, we'll go to that other link now to continue a private conversation. Thanks again to you, Adam, and thanks to the audience.
Much to everybody. Thank you for listening.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
See you on the other link.